Pompeian extra virgin olive oil may be in your pantry right now, and 2 expert taste panels failed 17 of 18 bottles of it. The enemy is the Food and Drug Administration, which has never written a legal definition for olive oil. In 2018, Bertolli's owner paid $7 million to settle a labeling case. But the strange part is not the cheap bottle, it's the expensive one. And one of the 3 honest brands is a Costco bottle at 31 cents an ounce. So today we're walking through 8 olive oil brands to walk right past and 3 that are actually worth your cart. Let's talk about what extra virgin actually means, because it is not a vibe and it is not marketing. It is a grade. To earn it, the oil has to be pressed from olives without heat or chemicals. It has to come in under 0.8% free fatty acids. And here's the part almost nobody knows. It has to pass a taste panel. 0 defects, some fruitiness. A trained group of humans sits down, smells it, tastes it, and votes on whether your bottle is what the label says. Why does doing that properly cost more? Because olives start dying the second they leave the tree. Real producers have to pick and press within hours, not days. Then store the oil cold and dark and away from oxygen. That is trucks, tanks, refrigeration, and speed, all for a crop that harvests once a year. Skip any of it and the oil goes flat. And flat oil gets refined with heat and solvents until it has no taste left at all. Refining is cheap. Speed is expensive. That gap is the whole business model. Now the loophole. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration has never set a legal standard of identity for olive oil. It declined to write one in 1982, and the industry's own trade association eventually had to file a petition begging for one. The Department of Agriculture does publish grade standards, adopted in 2010, but they are voluntary. A company can print extra virgin on the front of a bottle without ever submitting that bottle to anybody for anything. So the front can say cold pressed, first press, imported, premium, family owned, and the back never has to prove a word of it. Later I'll show you a 60-second test at your own kitchen counter that tells you whether the bottle you already own behaves like the real thing. And no, it is not the one you saw on television. That one is broken, and I'll show you exactly why. Brand number 8, Filippo Berio olive oil. Not the extra virgin, the plain golden cream label that just says olive oil, sitting a few inches away on the same shelf. Same bottle shape, same red seal in the corner. This is the one people grab when the extra virgin looks expensive that week. And it is in a lot of American pantries because it genuinely looks like the same product in a calmer package. Turn the bottle around and read what is missing. There is no grade in front of the words olive oil. That is not sloppiness, that is the label doing its job. Under the Department of Agriculture standards, olive oil sold with no grade attached is refined olive oil with a splash of virgin added back for color and flavor. Refined means the defects were cooked and chemically stripped out of it, deodorized at high heat until whatever was wrong with it stopped being detectable. That is not a scandal on its own. Refined oil has a job. The scandal is the price tag next to it. At Walmart right now, that plain bottle is $10.14 for 25.3 ounces. The extra virgin from the exact same company, same shelf, same size, is $10.97. 83 cents apart. They are banking on you reaching for the cheaper number without reading which grade you just agreed to. What you get pours the same and tastes like almost nothing. No pepper, no bite, no green smell when you open it. Flat, waxy, neutral, the culinary equivalent of a blank wall. And the polyphenols, the compounds behind nearly every olive oil health headline you have ever read, are largely stripped out during refining. You are buying the calories and leaving the reason on the factory floor. If you have been picking up that plain bottle every other week for the last year, you have spent around $264 on refined oil that was priced within $1 of the real grade. That is the part that bothers me. Not that a cheap product exists. The problem is when the shortcut stands shoulder to shoulder with the real thing and charges almost the same money. But at least that bottle tells you what it is on the front. The next one uses the words extra virgin, and 2 separate expert panels disagreed. Brand number 7, Star Extra Virgin Olive Oil. This is the big clear jug down on the bottom shelf, the one you buy when you cook a lot and you are tired of paying $7 for a bottle that lasts 3 weeks. 3 liters, imported from Spain. It feels like the smart, unglamorous, grown-up purchase, the one somebody who actually cooks would make. Look at what happened when it went to the lab. In the 2011 University of California Davis study, 11 of 18 star samples failed both International Olive Council taste panels. That is 61%, and it means two separate groups of trained tasters, working blind in two different countries, both said no. On the German and Australian chemistry tests, 78% of star samples failed the diacylglycerol test. That test matters because diacylglycerols break down as oil ages, gets hot, or gets blended with cheaper refined oil, and it was the single strongest chemical predictor of a failed taste panel in the entire study. At Walmart right now, that 3-liter jug runs $39.99, about 39 cents an ounce. Then look at the container it lives in, clear plastic, sitting under grocery store fluorescent lights for weeks before you ever touch it. Light and heat are precisely what turn olive oil rancid, and rancid oil smells like old crayons and tastes like wet cardboard at the back of your tongue. Here's what that tastes like in a pan. It does not sizzle into anything. There is no green smell coming off the heat, no bitterness at the finish, just a slick, faintly stale film that carries whatever else you put in the pan. People blame the recipe. It was the oil. And the very thing that makes the jug feel economical, its size, is what finishes it off. 3 liters is 101 ounces. That jug sits open on your counter for months, breathing oxygen every time you pour. Buy one every couple of months, and you're spending around $240 a year on oil that mostly could not pass a taste panel when researchers actually checked. And this is where the shelf gets weird, because the next brand costs more, wears an organic seal, and did no better. Brand number 6, Newman's Own Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. This is the one people buy on purpose. Organic seal, a face you trust, profits going to charity, that squeeze bottle, or the tall green glass with the familiar portrait. If you're standing in the aisle trying to do the right thing with your money, this is the bottle your hand goes to. In the 2010 University of California Davis study, researchers bought Newman's Own Organic in 3 different cities, Sacramento, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and tested them separately. 2 of the 3 graded down, not extra virgin, just virgin, because the Australian sensory panel found defects in the flavor. At Walmart, it is $10.48 for 16.9 ounces, which works out to more than 40% more per ounce than the bottle we just talked about. And get this, organic tells you how the olives were farmed. It says absolutely nothing about whether the oil in the bottle is still extra virgin by the time it lands in your cart. Those are 2 completely separate questions, and the seal on the front only answers one of them. The defects that panel logged, musty, fusty, rancid, are the flavors of oil that got old or got handled badly somewhere in the chain. An organically farmed olive can produce a defective oil just fine, and a downgrade to virgin is not a technicality. Virgin is the grade directly beneath extra virgin, and an oil lands there because a trained panel could taste something wrong with it. Musty means the olives sat in a pile and started to ferment. Fusty means the same thing, further along. Rancid means the fat itself has oxidized. Those are not opinions about flavor. They are the recorded evidence of something that went wrong before the cap went on. That is the trick this whole category runs on. Every seal you recognize is answering a question you did not ask, while the one question you care about, is this actually extra virgin, has no seal at all. Buy that bottle once a month for a year, and that is about $126 spent partly on a certification that was never measuring the thing you were worried about. Remember that price because one of the real brands later costs less per ounce than this one. Brand number 5, Carapelli. Green and gold, Florence on the label, founded 1893, the tall bottle that looks like somebody's grandfather carried it down a hillside. This is the label game at its most elegant, and it is the one people put on the table when guests come over. In the 2010 study, all 3 Carapelli samples from 3 different cities graded down to virgin. Every one. And the pyrophyophytin numbers were the worst in that entire report. 2 samples came in at 30.6 and 29.3 against a limit of 15. Pyrophyophytins climb as the chlorophyll in olive oil breaks down, so double the limit is the chemical signature of oil that sat somewhere warm for a very long time before it reached a shelf. Then it got worse. In 2015, prosecutors in Turin opened an investigation into 7 Italian producers, with Carapelli, Bertolli, and Sasso among them, after the consumer magazine Il Test bought 20 bottles and found 9 of them were not extra virgin. Delio, the Spanish company that owns all 3 of those Italian-sounding brands, was fined 300,000 euros over marketing practices. Read that again. Carapelli, Bertolli, and Sasso, 3 separate labels with 3 separate Italian family stories, are one Spanish corporation. And that is what those chemistry numbers actually describe on your counter. Oil that far past the pyrophyllophytin limit has lost the green edge entirely. It pours slightly darker, it smells faintly of nuts and cardboard, and it tastes soft and round and empty, which a lot of shoppers read as smooth and mild. Smooth and mild is very often just old. Now I want to be fair because I said I would not stretch anything. The bottle on Target's shelf today is the organic version, $11.99 for 16.9 ounces, and nobody has publicly retested that exact one. But it is the same company, the same label strategy, and the same country that needed prosecutors involved before anyone found out what was in the bottle. In Europe, extra virgin is a legal marketing standard under Regulation 2022/2104, with government conformity checks and defined chemical and taste requirements for every single grade. Just not here. But the next brand did not just get investigated, it wrote checks. Brand number 4. Bertolli Extra Virgin Olive Oil Rich Taste. This is the green bottle in the door of 1 million American kitchens. Your mother bought it, you probably buy it. It says Italy, it costs $7.47 for 16.9 ounces at Walmart, and it has felt like the safe default for about 30 years. Look at the lab first. 13 of 18 Bertolli samples failed both taste panels in the 2011 study, 72%. 61% failed the diacylglycerol test. Then look at the courthouse. In April of 2018, Diolio USA agreed to a $7 million settlement of a class action over Bertolli labeling, covering purchases going back to May of 2010. And the claims at the center of it were exactly the 2 phrases on the front of the package: imported from Italy, extra virgin. Buyers of the extra virgin got 75 cents a bottle back. Buyers of the Classico and the extra light got $1.50. Sit with that number for a second. 75 cents on a bottle that cost $7.47. The compensation was about 1/10 of what you paid for a claim printed on the front in the largest type on the entire package. That is not a punishment, that is a cost of doing business, and everybody involved knows it. And notice what the settlement did not include. Nobody had to reformulate anything. Nobody had to pull a bottle. The case was about words, and the words were worth $7 million in one country over 8 years of sales, which tells you roughly what those words were earning. And the shopper never finds out. There is no recall notice on a labeling settlement. The bottle does not change color. It sits in the same spot on the same shelf the following week, saying the same words, and you reach for it again because your mother did. If Bertolli has been your weekly bottle for the last year, that is roughly $388, and the settlement over the words on the label would have covered about 39 of it. And the next one settled too. But its problem was not the front of the label, it was the map on the back. Brand number 3, Filippo Berio Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Same company as brand number 8, but now the green label, the one that actually says extra virgin. $7.48 for 16.9 ounces at Walmart. This is the brand people defend in the comments because it has been sitting on American shelves since before most of us were born, and the name sounds like a person you could shake hands with. 15 of 18 samples failed both taste panels in the 2011 study, 83%. Only one brand in that entire report did worse, and we are getting to it in a minute. Now the map. A woman named Rohini Kumar sued Salov North America in May of 2014. Her claim was not that the oil was fake, and that is what makes this one so useful. Her claim was that the front of the bottle said imported from Italy, while the small print on the back admitted the olives were grown and pressed in Tunisia, Greece, and Spain. The company settled. A federal judge granted preliminary approval in January of 2017. Salov agreed to stop the practice, and buyers got 50 cents a bottle. That is the whole trick right there. Nothing was hidden. Everything was technically disclosed. It was just disclosed in the place nobody reads, in the type nobody can read, on the side of the bottle that faces the back of the shelf. And the oil itself is not the point of the lawsuit, but it is the point of this video. 83% of those samples had something a trained panel could taste and object to. Not poison, not fake, just tired. The kind of oil that goes into a pan and gives you nothing back. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Walk the aisle and count how many bottles say Italy in large friendly letters on the front, and then quietly list 3 other countries on the back. A bottle a week for a year is about $389 spent partly on a word that was pointing at the wrong country. If this is already saving you from a bad shop, do me a favor and hit subscribe. We publish one of these every week. But this next one is not a brand at all. It is a single word. And it is on a bottle in half the kitchens in America. Brand number 2, Light and Extra Light Olive Oil. Filippo Barrio Extra Light Tasting, $10.14 for 25.3 ounces at Walmart. Pompeian Simply Light, $28.99 for 2 2-liter bottles at Costco. Different companies, same word, and what that word is doing to shoppers is the thing on this list that genuinely annoys me most. Go look at the nutrition panel. Right now, on the bottle you already own. 120 calories per tablespoon. Now go look at the extra virgin sitting next to it. 120 calories per tablespoon. Identical. Because olive oil is 100% fat and always has been. Light is not a calorie claim, and it never was one. It is not even a grade. It does not appear in the Department of Agriculture standards, and it does not appear in the International Olive Council standards either. It describes color and flavor after the oil has been refined, which is a polite way of saying most of the taste was deliberately removed. So somebody watching their weight, somebody whose doctor just had a conversation with them about cholesterol, picks up the light bottle, feels good about the decision, and takes home the exact same calories in a more processed oil with fewer of the compounds that made olive oil worth eating in the first place. That is not a shortcut hiding in an ingredient list. That is diet theater printed on the front of the package in bold. And refining is not a gentle process. The oil gets treated, bleached, and deodorized at high heat until the defects are undetectable, which also removes most of the polyphenols and the color and the peppery bite along with them. What comes out the other end is a stable, neutral cooking fat. It is fine, it is just not the thing the front of the bottle is trading on. And it works on the people it is least fair to work on. Nobody young and skeptical is buying the light bottle. It is being bought by people trying to take care of themselves. Someone buying that bottle monthly for a year has spent around $122 on a health decision that was never a health decision. And the final skip brand is the one that scored worse than every other bottle in the entire study. Brand number 1, Pompeian Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Smooth or robust, $7.38 for 16 ounces at Walmart. And it is one of the best-selling olive oils in the country. Farmer owned across the front, quality seals stamped on the label, 9,000 reviews and 4.7 stars on Walmart's own website. Of every bottle on this list, this is the one that looks the most honest. Here are the numbers. 2011, University of California, Davis, 2 accredited taste panels working blind. 17 of 18 Pompeian samples failed both, 94%. Then the chemistry. 100% of the samples failed the diacylglycerol test. Every single bottle. 94% failed the pyrophyophytin test. And in the earlier 2010 report, all 3 Pompeian samples bought in 3 different cities graded down to virgin. No other brand in that study performed worse on the tasting and the chemistry. Not the cheap Spanish jug, not the supermarket store brand, the one with the seals on it. And that is the part I keep coming back to. 2 independent expert panels tasting blind with no idea what brand was in the glass, and 94% of the time they said this is not extra virgin. Meanwhile, the front of that bottle says it in the biggest letters on the package. 4.7 stars of shoppers agree it is great, and no federal agency was ever required to check because there is no federal definition to check it against. And think about what that bottle physically is when it gets home. It pours pale gold. It smells faintly sweet and nutty when you open it, and it disappears into everything you cook. No pepper, no cough, nothing that talks back. Shoppers call that mild and buy it again. which is exactly why a defective oil can sell 9,000 happy reviews worth of bottles. Nobody complains because nobody knows what the real thing was supposed to taste like. And the seals do not help you here either. Quality seals in this category are trade association programs, not government inspections. They are a company choosing to participate in something. They are not a regulator walking into a plant. Buy that bottle every week for a year and you have spent about $384 on the worst performing bottle in the largest public olive oil test anyone has run in this country. Now, the test I promised you. You have probably seen the one where you put olive oil in the refrigerator, and if it thickens, it is real. Forget it. In 2013, the same University of California, Davis researchers ran that test properly. 7 samples, 60 hours, a laboratory refrigerator at 40.5 degrees, not one congealed. And a sample they had deliberately cut with up to 50% lower grade oil did thicken, which means the fridge test would have handed the fake a passing grade. It measures saturated fat and olive variety. It cannot tell you one thing about honesty. Do this instead, and it takes under a minute. Pour a spoonful into a small glass. Cup your hand over the top and hold it in your palm for 30 seconds because cold oil does not release its smell. Now uncover it and put your nose in. Good oil smells green. Cut grass, tomato leaf, artichoke, something alive. Bad oil smells like old crayons, like putty, like walnuts left in a drawer, or like nothing at all. Then take a small sip and swallow. A real extra virgin bites the back of your throat and makes you want to cough. That sting is polyphenols, the compounds refining strips out. No sting, no smell, no bitterness means you are holding an oil that lost its identity somewhere between the tree and your counter. That cough is what those 2 panels were listening for, and it is exactly what the next 3 brands actually deliver. Now, if you've made it this far, here's the payoff. 3 olive oil brands that are actually what they say they are, and one of them costs the same as the Bertolli sitting in your fridge door right now. But the surprise is not that the real ones are better. The surprise is how ordinary and how cheap the honest ones look sitting on the shelf. Real brand number 3, Cobram Estate. 2 friends from an agricultural college in Geelong, Australia, Rob McGavin and Paul Reardon, started this in 1998 and planted their first grove at Boundary Bend in northern Victoria the following year. They did not buy finished oil from brokers and blend it into a bottle with a nice name. They planted the actual trees, which is a strange way to run a business because an olive tree takes years before it pays you anything at all. Owning the grove is the expensive choice, and it is also the entire point. When you own the trees and the mill sits in the middle of the orchard, you can press within hours of picking. Every producer buying oil on the open market is buying something that already sat in somebody else's tank for a while, and nobody can tell you exactly how long or how warm. In the 2011 study, Cobram Estate had 0 samples fail either taste panel and 0 fail the diacylglycerol test. I will give you the blemish too, because I promised I would not clean anything up. All 8 of its samples failed the pyrophyophytin test, which is an age and heat marker, and the researchers did not resolve why. So here is the habit to build, and it is the single most useful thing in this video. Cobram prints a harvest date on the package, not just a best buy date. Best buy is a guess about when the oil dies. Harvest is a fact about when it was born. Buy the most recent harvest year you can find on the shelf. At Walmart, it is $12.37 for 12.7 ounces. Dark glass, Australian flag, plain label. It is boring in the best possible way. Real brand number 2. California Olive Ranch, 100% California. In 1998, growers planted olive rows on a ranch in Oroville, just outside Chico, in a way nobody in America was doing at the time. Packed tight, trained into hedges, so a machine could harvest an entire row in one pass. The whole design was built around one number, the hours between the tree and the mill. It worked. 0 of 18 samples failed either taste panel in the 2011 study. 0 failed the diacylglycerol test. Both samples in the 2010 study came back extra virgin. And in 2015, when the National Consumers League ran its own independent shelf test through an accredited Australian lab, California Olive Ranch passed there too, in a study it had nothing to do with. I will be straight with you. California Olive Ranch helped fund that University of California Davis research, which is exactly why the independent one matters more. Now the important part, because this brand will trip you up in the aisle. There are two different versions sitting side by side. The global blend, made with imported oils from several countries, is $15.24 for 25.4 ounces. The 100% California bottle, the one that was actually tested, is $13.98 for the exact same size. The cheaper looking one is the one you want. That almost never happens in a grocery store. Read the front panel for the words 100% California, ignore the word global, and check the back for a harvest date. And if this ranking is useful, hit the like button. It really helps the channel cut through the algorithm. Real brand number 1, Kirkland Signature Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Costco built its own label in 1995 around one stubborn idea. Stock one version of a thing, make it good enough that nobody complains, sell it in volume, and spend nothing on marketing. No celebrity on the front, no hillside photography, no Italian family story printed on the back that turns out to belong to a Spanish holding company. Here is what that produced. In the 2010 study, all 3 Kirkland Organic samples bought in 3 different cities passed as extra virgin. Its diacylglycerol readings came in at 42.8, 57.4, and 55.6 against a minimum of 40. Its polyphenol levels were 244, 298, and 292, among the highest numbers anywhere in that report. Those are the compounds behind the health research, and they are the same compounds behind the throat sting in the test we just did. 2 liters at Costco is $20.99. That comes out to about 31 cents an ounce, which makes it cheaper per ounce than every single brand on the skip list, including the one that failed 94% of the time. It carries more than 6,000 member reviews on Costco's own site, which, for a store brand with no advertising budget behind it, tells you people keep walking back for the same jug. And here's the kicker. You can protect this yourself with a dark glass bottle and a funnel in about 2 minutes. Decant what you will use this month, keep the rest sealed, away from the stove and out of the window light. We'll put the method in the description. The one thing worth remembering out of all of this is that in the largest public olive oil test run in this country, 17 of 18 Pompeian bottles failed to qualify as extra virgin, and no federal agency was ever required to check because the Food and Drug Administration has still never written a legal definition for olive oil. The worst offender on this list is Pompeian. Worst on the tasting and worst on the chemistry, wearing the most seals. The best of the real ones is Kirkland Signature Organic, which passed everything and costs less per ounce than the bottles that failed. So on your next grocery run, do one thing. Turn the bottle around and look for a harvest date. If there isn't one, put it back. Next week, we tested something that will change how you look at the honey in your cabinet, because a lot of what gets sold as honey in American stores has been through a process that removes the one thing that proves where it came from. Drop the brand you still trust in the comments. We're building the list together. Hit subscribe if this changed how you shop today. We'll see you in the next aisle.